staying under the radar. You
Mm.
know, it's when you put all the numbers together, we've grown quite a bit.
You really have. But you started out with really good numbers from the beginning
Mm,
anyway, from what I saw.
yeah, I mean, it's been gradual. It's been going.
Yeah.
I think the first video started in, excuse me, in 2015, August
Oh my
2015.
God, that's
It's
amazing.
been, yeah, it's been a while.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great that you've kept this going this whole time.
Yeah. Everybody's got to do what they got to do, right?
Yeah, we're all doing our part.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. How's everybody at your place?
Everybody's good. I mean, last year was very intense. We lost both my parents and my younger brother,
Wow.
not from COVID, and but that's still a lot, you know. So
Yeah, of
we're
course it
still
is.
healing. We're still dealing, and not expected really. So
Yeah.
it's. I mean, my mom maybe, but still. But other than that,
Yeah.
we bought a home and moved into it, and
I saw that.
so
I
we're
remember
so
seeing it.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
really happy. We're really happy. So it's grief and sadness, and also we know that they're on the other side, but
Yeah.
we still want to hug people, right? When we love them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a lot. We can talk about that. I think we're all hooked up now. Let me just put on the intro real quick and give people just a little bit more time. 1 minute, 19 seconds. We'll be right back. We had to cut it. They're having problems with it. They said I
no
couldn't.
worries.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there was a hair on her camera lens. Stephanie put. I saw it when you came on, but I thought, wow,
There
that's,
is. It's cats. Oh my God,
uh,
it's a cat hair.
I thought it was
It's
what do they
still
call it?
there.
The cosmic web. You know, like when you
Oh,
see
wait.
pictures of space and they focus in on it. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, welcome back, and Vanessa, and it's good to see you again. And we were just talking. I think a lot of that was caught on video, but in regard to my condolences to you and your family.
Thank
Losing
you.
losing three family members. That's a lot. And it's there's been a lot, COVID or not. I mean, at that point of physical transition, it really doesn't matter of the reality of what it is. And it's been a lot of that going on, though. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much going on. So much going on. Honestly, from about May to October, I think I was like giving my condolences 7 times a day online,
yeah, yeah,
Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And then in my own life, even, and also my improv coach passed. He was in his 50s, also not COVID, but not expected. And a couple of clients who were in their 50s, early 60s also passed suddenly. So there's a lot of, I think, souls leaving the planet,
yeah,
choosing to evolve, go on, move forward,
yeah.
um, exchange realities. Um, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's been talked about for years. I mean, so I really didn't get really immersed into the communities until late 2013, but there was a lot of people that were prophesizing, if that's the right word, that when the time came, we would see that, and it seems like that's what's happening. Because I mean, like you said, you can't even go on the news feed without seeing people are transitioning, and
Yes.
it's obviously in that divine orchestration because of the energetic, that it presents before us. How do we deal with that? How do we look at what we call death? What it means to our transformation and our further awareness. I mean, it's a big subject, and I guess at the end of the day, it's probably the base program of this realm in terms of the distortion, uh, or the illusion or the misconception that it's actually the end of the road when it's really not.
I agree. I agree. I want to say hello to everybody who's coming on, and thank you, Todd, for having me on. I don't
Hmm.
know if I said that before. I absolutely think so, and I also think too, like on the spiritual plane, obviously we're eternal, we're multidimensional, and then we choose to have this grand adventure. Sometimes it's grander, sometimes it's not so grand, called human life. But human life on Earth implies birth, death, rebirth. Like you see it
Yeah.
in nature, you see it in your pets. They pass away. You see it in even our appearances over time, like we're always changing and shifting.
Yeah.
um, so it's not it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter how evolved you are. At some point you're leaving your vehicle, you're
Yeah.
leaving your vessel. So I would say, just because we started talking about this a little bit, I got caught. One of the things people kept saying to me is, how could you still show up? I show up a lot on Instagram. How do you still show up? Held free meditations, expanded my school. I was like, well, my parents were on the other side, like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, you can cry. And I have. I've cried, like, I think year and a half, 2 years, a little bit every day. Um, because I felt that they were leaving together. I
Mm.
felt I didn't know how close. And I also did a lot of my work in my life, but in the last year too, when all of them passed, I didn't feel guilty. I mean, sometimes people do for many reasons,
Yeah.
but I felt at peace, and I wasn't upset about the relationships I had with them. Would I have liked more time with them? And I know that's a big deal for people because I also do mediumship work, that they're very upset. They're like, well, my mom never apologized. I never apologized.
Mm.
There's an anger, there's an attachment to the relationship.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, make your pieces, do your work.
Yeah.
Because once it happened for me, uh, I miss them. I love them. I was in shock even with my younger brother for a minute there for 2 weeks, but I felt okay in the knowing that, I'd done what I could do. I'd been what I could be to them, and that they were there still. And so, doing your spiritual practice, also doing your therapeutic work, your healing work, um, allows you to be able to hold space for it. And also, you don't know how you're going to react. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was like, am I going to drop on the floor and not be able to work? I didn't have that experience, but I was still waking up every morning going, how does someone with so much energy and passion like my mom not exist in a physical body anymore?
Right.
I still think that, and she left in April,
Yeah.
right? And I can feel her energetically, but she's that person that would wake you up. Hola, mi amor, ¿cómo estás? And you're like, hey, hi, mom. It didn't matter if it was like 10 a.m., 7 a.m., 1 in the morning. And so it's just making peace with that, I think.
Yeah.
And understanding, like, we're up next. Like, I feel like my brother and I are now the oldest in the family in the United States. And so we're the elders now, kind of stepping into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing too, I think that's coming into play, which has always been there. You're a medium, so I mean, I know when I first woke up, I guess I was doing a lot of mediumship because there was a lot of disincarnated souls that I knew or didn't know that were coming to me and saying, "Hey, you need to call my mom. You need to do this." And yeah, you could see there's so many different messages, but some of the some of the things that have gone on recently that I've been privy to, and going back to what you're saying, let me just preface it. I, like a lot of people, in the pre-awakening and during the awakening, there was a lot of trauma. And in my case, there was a lot of people that in the early couple of years passed.
Mm.
And that was something I kind of missed. Like you walk past something. And then there was a couple of them. One was a relative, or one was a family member, and one was an ex-boss that, pre-awakening, I always knew there was some kind of connection here, like familiarity. And what I'm getting at is, in both cases, there was, from my end, there was several, I took the initiative several times to break bread with them, to find that peace, because I found that there were things that were not said, and
Right.
and it was mostly coming from me, like my old boss. I was like, dude, you effed me, and then I realized, oh, this is why I'm getting it. It's not about him; it's about me. And so then to reach those levels of congruence with someone that's, you know, that's physically transitioned, has, brought me a lot of growth, actually.
Yes,
A lot of,
yes.
yeah.
I'm
So,
so glad you shared that because you said the
well,
past 20
yeah.
years.
And I struggled, well, when I first started doing it, I struggled with the first one I tried it with, that I had the most, I guess, conflict with or imbalance. And it took me a while. I mean, I must have tried 8, 10 times over a couple of years. And I was like, what's going on here? I mean, I can connect, but I can't connect to their energy. And then one day it happened. And then I realized, oh, I can access this, but I've got to clear something within myself, which is distorted by my perception of what they did and
Yeah.
what I wasn't conscious of within myself. But over the last few months, as these have occurred, with as I've seen in the field with people, there has been a lot of people, including myself, that have had experiences very quickly after the transition where they come in and are speaking. I guess maybe because the veils are thinner, there's fewer veils.
Absolutely. I wanted to share that, we bought this house, um, and we're supposed to do our walk through October 19th and get the house on the 21st. My brother passed October 15th, and we were sitting at home excited, sitting like, oh my God, we're going to be house owners. I never thought I'd be one. I didn't really particularly really desire to be one. It, kind of happened, and I was like, okay, let's do this together. Um, and we got a phone call from my sister who was whispering that they'd taken him to the ambulance. She couldn't speak loudly because she was taking care of my brother's younger son. And then my other brother called crying, and he's a very calm person, saying, "He's not, this is it. I think it's it." And so I said, "Please breathe. You're driving behind the ambulance. I don't want to lose two brothers in one night, please." He calmed down, and I told my partner, "I was like, I'm going up to do what I do." And I literally ran up to my office, grabbed my talking stick, laid down on the floor, and went in, and I was trying to find my brother, because I was like, is he here? Is he not? And I literally saw him in the ambulance outside the body already,
Oh
looking
wow.
at his body saying, I can't get back. And I go, please get back. Like, please, like, what do I have to do, universe? I'll do anything. Like, he was 40, he was still young. And I
Yeah.
was like, what can we arrange? Is there something like, can I help? I'm doing the Reiki, I'm doing everything. And he's like, I went really fast. I'm going to hang out with he was just telling me, like you said, it went quicker than sometimes you have to wait a while. Sometimes you have to
Hmm.
wait a year till they go through what they go through. He was still there, and he was just telling me, I went really fast. I'm going to hang out around my family, my child and my wife. And when I came down, we hadn't gotten the call he had passed yet. But I said, my brother just told me he left.
Yeah.
And then I called my brother, and he's like, I'm holding his hand. He left. And I said, did he go really fast? He goes, he did. He literally went like, and they couldn't like bring him back.
Wow.
And so that gave me peace though, because I saw him and I saw him with my family, and he was telling me like, I'm trying to get in, I can't, but he was at peace. He was like, we knew I had a heart condition since I was born. I lived my life the best that I could. I'm still with you type of energy. And he showed me different strange things in the house. Sometimes I'm like, I'm alone in the house. It's creepy. I
Yeah.
can't hear
Right.
my video. Send me a message like, don't do lights, don't do,
Yeah.
we've talked about this before. So I agree with you. And I'm glad you brought it up that I think that we're being able to get in touch with them sooner than
Yeah.
we were in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I remember getting a visit from one of my family members, and it was right away. It was the same day. Like it happened early in the morning. It was a car accident, and then later, like I want to say, like for early evening, they came in and they were happy. Like, oh, I can fly. Always knew I could fly, and then they explained to me. Well, they had like a personal message, like here's 1, 2, 3 things I want to tell you. Now I have to go, and they told me that there's I guess like a kind of an indoctrination. You know, they had already been privy to it. They wanted to go visit a few people, like what you were talking about, and then they said, I'll be back around in a few weeks, Earth time. I've got to go get decompressed and brought up to date on what the hell all this is.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
amazing, Todd.
Mm.
Well, you're a medium as well.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't. A lot of it happened early on. That's how I woke up, and and really most of it had to do with connecting the departed with, the those that were still incarnated, messages, and a lot of it had to do with what you're talking about, like, the guilt and the shame and it worked both ways. It was interesting because sometimes it was a message of, hey, they don't need to feel guilty, I'm good, and as long as they're that way, I can't really pull away. I need for this and then other times it was the disincarnated. I remember the first one I had was a boyhood friend, and he's the first one that appeared to me. He was sitting on the lazy boy, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And then it all came in, and his thing was he was possessed by shame and guilt. That's kind of how it worked. But it worked both ways, which was interesting to me. It kind of showed me that there was polarity in both, where they were and where we're at. It wasn't any different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love that you're sharing. And I wanted to look over at the comments. Hey, Eliguera, how are you? Love you as well. And then they're saying, my mother and sister got possessed by my uncle. They bitched. My grandfather came through my husband with a message for the family just a couple of hours after he passed, right?
Yeah.
December 31st. We're so sorry for your loss and so great that you got that message.
Yeah.
I had to drive them home. And then somebody wrote, perfect story about how life is more than we ever understood it. Was proven through experience. I have all this knowledge from my own experiences, so I shall go manifest things. I love you guys. Thank you for sharing. Oh, thank you.
I know that in this, of course, 2020 was such an expansive year, regardless of how tumultuous it was to the human aspect. But I remember, several months ago, maybe halfway through the year, Morgan's, when we do our thing at night, she was channeling specific information, and this was in regard to the expansion of what we might call the Trinity frequency, and one of the channels was that, and I forget the number, but one of the roles of the people that were transitioning was to remove the darkness or the illusion or the shadow, and there was a number attributed to it, and I can't remember what it was, but it was very, very real, very pure, and it made sense to me. It made a lot of sense. And even I remember her getting one in regard to pets, that a lot of pets were taking on all they could from their partner and taking it with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've encountered that once with a pet that passed, and when I came home and the other one was going crazy and meowing and and then led me to where the body was of the other cat. When I held the cat started telling me a couple of different things, the spirit of what it was taking from me. And I was like, wow. So that was early on in my life too. Yes, I believe that. And in some of my readings, I've seen pets like dogs and cats leaving folks. This was a couple of folks, actually more than a couple, saying I left because you weren't allowing yourself to love a human and to get into a relationship because you just love me. And it was time for me to leave so you can become aware that you are ready now to love a partner, to bring the partner in. And that was the message from the pets. And people were like, they're right. My love life is a mess. I've been closed off. I don't want to deal with anything. And the pets were saying, yeah, I love you and I'm here. Just know that it's time for you to open your heart to love, your family or a partner. So you're so right.
You're in aren't you in the Northeast? Are you in the Northeast?
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Somebody said, we are on IG? Yes, I am the Biz Bruja. And I'm sorry, Todd, you were saying, yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania.
You know what I was going to ask you? What the hell is IG? I keep seeing that. What is that?
Instagram.
Oh, Instagram.
Totally.
Okay.
The Biz Bruja over here. I'm on there a lot.
Bruja Blanca.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? I forgot.
About people passed over, the messages we were talking about.
Yeah. I can't remember.
And the Trinity and the messages Morgan was channeling. And I agree that they did lift up veils and energetic patterns.
Yeah, I knew where I was going with it now. Yeah, on that note, so like you are in what I would consider, in a lot of ways, a dense area. and dense doesn't mean necessarily bad. It just means in my old business, my old career, which had to do with mostly with home renovations, 55% of our business was in the Northeast, because of the density of the households and the neighborhoods and such. And of course, having spent time over there, it's a lot. And even in my travels, it's a lot. With everything going on right now, which again is, it really kind of centered. It's like an epicenter: Washington D.C., New York, Pennsylvania. I mean, to me, they all run together. New England.
I'm an hour and a half away from Baltimore, New York
Yeah,
City, no, New York City 4 hours. But I'm a New York City person. I only
yeah,
moved here 3 years ago, and I can say this: that as an empath and an intuitive from a young age, being in New York City taught me how to manage my energy. And that's
yes,
why, like, a lot of my courses teach people how to really clear themselves, cleanse, ground, because I had to learn it to get on the subway. I was on the subway from the age of 13 to, or 12, from like 42. I mean, I
wow,
still go on there, but I mean, not like every day for work or school.
yeah. I
Yeah.
spent I spent 4 months living in the Bronx, and this would have been late 2016, early 2017. And I had never been in this incarnation. I had
Right.
never been to New York. I didn't want to go to New York. Yet now I'm in the heart of the South Bronx. So I'm on these, and that was the thing. I had always done my work in the forest, or in a cemetery, or places that was natural settings, and spirit walks in that way. And but when I went to New York, it was totally different. Like, I mean, it's like the energies are in your face. And it's interesting that you mentioned that about the subway, because I would get on the subway, put your hand on the rail, and you can just feel all the oil from people's hand. And again, I'm thinking energy, but it really was a great laboratory for me to equalize and integrate and transform my perception. Is really what you get down to it, because that is my consciousness. But the subway was my bread and butter, man. I mean, Grand Central. I mean, all those places. I remember being in, what is it, where the Rockefeller tree is. That whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was there. I had just gotten there, and I had a place to live, and then I got kicked out after like 3 or 4 days. So I'm walking through, and this is like a day or two before Christmas, walking through that area, whatever that is, Fifth Avenue or whatever that is, and it was snowed like 18 inches. I'm carrying my luggage, and so there's always that inverse, right? You know,
Yeah, totally. And you know what? I have to say, I've had to get used to where I live now.
hmm,
And I've never lived in the suburbs.
yeah,
I've never lived near the country or a farm. And I'm somebody that likes to get up
yeah,
and walk to the store and walk here and go meet my friends for a cafe, go to a cafe, go have brunch, go to a gathering, have people over my apartment for a monthly meeting. I actually vibe to that New York energy, like that
yeah,
high, like do 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 do. And so I've been in the invitation of slowing down
yeah,
and being supported in a different way. And hey, maybe it was time, in my 40s, to my late 40s, to finally be guided out of that space. But I actually love it, and I love the people.
yeah,
I have met some of the most amazing, courageous, resilient human beings in New York City. And I've been there when the towers fell and how we were helping each other in the streets. I wasn't near the towers. So for me, like, I have a real passion for New
yeah,
Yorkers,
yeah,
um, and for the energy that it takes for them to survive and thrive. When I came out here, I cried a lot. I'll be very transparent, because I saw that people, like, I saw people in New York who had a lot of education, who had busted their hiney to go to school, to take out loans, to work really 2, 3 jobs to make it. And they still couldn't, let's say, own a home, right? And then here you have a regular job and you can have a home, which is really the way it should be. But I was like, wow, like, there's so much more ease in central Pennsylvania or
mm,
outside of New York City than it is. And I did cry because I kind of was aching for my younger self, who
mm,
had 3 jobs for most of my life, including my business on the side. And for the folks who are still there,
yeah,
that can be a lot.
yeah.
So,
It's a. I noticed that right away. I referred to it. I even wrote about it back then. It was a hard Scrabble frequency,
yeah.
not in a bad way, but like everybody was. It's like there's something about you walk, and again, this is all from an energetic evolution perspective. You walk out on the streets. First of all, I was pre Morgan. I mean, we were talking. but I had hit the road and there was some disconnect. She had some things going on. I had some things going on. And so it was almost like a birthing for me. But one of the things I noticed, because I was used to working with energies, I lived next door to a cemetery in Houston before I left, and I would go out there every night and I would encounter everything, you know,
Yeah.
both physical and non-physical. And I learned to hold them in the same light, so to speak. But when I went to New York, and of course I was single, and one other thing I mean by that is I had some habits, and I'm not talking about fooling around because I was celibate, but 3 o'clock in the morning, I can come out of the apartment, walk up to the store, get a brown bag with a straw, walk down and drink a tall boy while I do my thing. But everywhere you look, there was energy, be it a person. I mean, you walk by a place and you could feel the cumulative energies of that place so much. And it taught me a lot very quickly. It was a fast track, no doubt. But
Yeah.
it was very enticing to me. I actually had a timeline. It was Soulogy. You're going to go into these clubs. I went to a place in, Harlem. I was on the subway coming back from Coney Island with a friend of mine one night, and then Saint Germain popped up and Archangel Michael popped up. And I said, "Hey, are you seeing this?" She's like, "Yeah." And then I saw this vision of, I think it was 126th and Harlem Avenue. Well, there's not a Harlem Avenue, but I went to Harlem, went to 126th and MLK, see this place. And I was told, go in there and tell me you want to do a show. So I had this, and I did. So I had this whole timeline being shown to me that this is where you're going to do it. You're going to do it in the bars and in the coffee shops. And then the next thing you know, Morgan and I, decided to come together, and I chose a different timeline. But I can absolutely see the value of being, and Houston was like that.
Yeah.
I was told, walk this area. It was the international energy corridor. Look at these buildings. Project pure white golden light into the buildings. I mean, there's a lot of work can be done in a heavy, dense, area. So walking through the forest, walking through the streets in New York, they are all one and the same thing, really.
Absolutely. And what I would say too that I'm grateful for, as sensitive as I am, it brought out my strength. And I've gone through so much there. I worked 2-3 jobs to be able to finish my education. And I used to come home at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With my shield on and always warned. And like you said, one of the things I love about it is, like, literally, I remember walking down the street, I haven't done a play in a really long time. I want to perform in a play. And as I'm thinking this, I walk 2 blocks and there's a sign outside that says Vagina Monologues audition today. And I happen to be wearing a red dress. I run in, audition, and I get into the play. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it's like that type of thing. Like I would wake up and be like, I was younger. I was like in my 20s going, I want to sing. And I was at work and I'm like humming down the hall, dun, 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 doing my thing. And suddenly somebody sticks out their head, hey, I need a backup singer. And you're like, okay. And you know what I mean? And the next thing you know, it was really like that. It would be like spirits like gather them in your apartment in like 1998. And I'd be like, who am I going to invite? You'll know. I'm walking down the street. I go into a store, somebody's talking to me. They're like, I've been meditating. I've been seeing things. You know what? Come to my house next full moon.
Yeah.
I would be like, are you crazy? You're inviting strangers. And I'm like, I'm protected. And thankfully we were. But it was such a diverse group of people too.
It is.
Cultures and religions. And that is what I love. Yeah. And that's part of what I missed here. But I also understand that I've been brought here for another phase of my life to have this,
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for particularly now, because I've known people, Morgan's one of them, I mean, that have not planned on coming and staying, but they are. Like, I have some friends from Europe that have been here for about a year, just traveling around. Visas expired and, the whole 9 yards. But there's something to be said for the location. A lot of people have changed location within the States. And then also the number of people that have come to the States. She was pointing out to me the other night that that's something she'd received, that we've come here for a specific reason to anchor, to anchor that light into the new grid, basically. So
Absolutely. No, she's so great. We got to bring her on here too. She should come on. I don't know if she has. Um,
oh,
I'm,
she comes on.
oh, good, good.
She's been on a somewhat of a hiatus lately,
Yeah.
but I
Don't
think
keep her to yourself now. Don't keep her to
no,
yourself.
no, it's her own choice.
I know the
She
world.
prefers
I
the back.
know.
She likes to be in the background.
I know you're
But
so supportive.
yeah,
It,
I think this year, like last year, there was a lot of particularly women that came out on this program for the first time. Like, and the conversation would normally be, do you want to come on? Would you come on? And they're like, oh, that's not my gig. And then, we might write them 2 or 3 more times. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I don't want to do this, but I know I have to. Like, I got hands on my back pushing me. And I think that's going to continue to happen both for the masculine and the feminine. Uh, that's going to be continuing this year. I mean, I'm seeing it with what I do, even like the last show, like talking about things that haven't been talked about, relaying the experiences. This gentleman, Joe, thank you for the comment. Comments like this, hearing both your stories keep me hopeful. I mean, there's something about, um, you know, the correlation or the equalization that occurs when people go, myself included, wow, Vanessa can do that, wow. And you look at her over here, and then all of a sudden, through the code that's, presented before you, you realize, well, that is me. I
right.
can do that. We're all mediums.
Right, right. And that's one of the things, Todd. Like when I teach Reiki, I don't teach it the way I was taught it, and I had great teachers, but I say things like, you already have an ability for energy healing. It's already, and in every country of the world, every culture, every ancestor, somewhere in time, there's been energy healing in your family. There's been hands on healing. We may have lost the actual name of it, the tradition of it, but what we're doing here is I'm not giving you something you don't have. I'm just teaching you the Reiki tradition. You already have it. When I teach a technique for intuition, you already have it. We were born with it. I wanted to address somebody that was saying Lauren Alejandra Colis, Alexandra. She
Mm,
was saying Codorniu means quail in Catalan. Lauren, I am from Catalonia, part of my family, the Codorniu side of the family. So
wow.
thank you for translating that for me. Yeah. Yo no hablo catalán, hablo español. I don't speak Catalan, but my great grandfather, my great grandmother did. They didn't teach us any words, and they passed when we were pretty young. Así que thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Yeah. I'm part of it because Codorniu is not a typical last name, so it's coming from Spain, Catalonia, and Romania.
Mm,
So totally, thank you. I wanted to address that because I saw it.
wow.
Thank you for
Very
sharing
cool.
that. And I love that you show that, Todd, because getting back to the combo, um,
Yeah.
that people who decide to, or who have a mission, like for you to host this platform, to share your experiences, to interview folks, to have conversations. Folks like me who've been doing like the work, the readings, the hypnosis, the Reiki, the trainings. Um, we have the ability, just like you do. It's just that this is the calling or the mission in
Right.
this lifetime. It doesn't also mean like, I wanted to share something. So somebody once said to me, "Oh, why is it that you're with somebody that doesn't believe in this?" We had talked about it in one of our
Yeah. Yeah.
interviews,
I remember.
and I was like, "You don't know that he was not a great like meditator, like spiritual teacher in another life," and was like, "Nah, I did it last lifetime. Now I'm just going to integrate it and just live my life and not believe in anything and just be." Like we make assumptions about where people are in their evolution,
Exactly.
about what they talk about or what they do for a living, but the truth is that it's another job, and that your mailman is flowing divine light, right? If they're there doing this work, the person in the grocery store who's smiling at me and like
Mm,
grounding this beautiful light, it's like our ability to be a healer, a light worker, does not depend on your business card. And I think we talked about this before too, that so many folks thinks that it does. So many
yeah.
folks think that we have to go out and build a spiritual business, that we have to
Yeah.
go out, and if you want to go ahead, but at the same time, yes, Patricia's saying grace, bringing grace into the space. Yes.
Yeah. Sandra Walter. You ever heard of her?
No.
She's been out there. She's originally from Chicago, so she's like Morgan. I think this started for her like in the late '90s, and it's a pretty remarkable story. She's been on a few times. She's well known, and but anyway, she came on right after the David Icke show last week, which was a really good combination Morgan set up, and And one of the things she said was, and I love these people that are really, they're high frequency. They're just no BS and, down to earth. And, she's like that. And I love that they can be so down to earth. And so I was talking to her about the end of 2020, start of 2021. She's like, oh my God. I said something to her like, do you ever get unbalanced? Because if anyone doesn't, I would think it would be her. She goes, oh my God, are you kidding me? But one of the things she was saying was that occurred at the end of last year was that, what you're talking about with what we call, or what we call ourselves, way showers, light workers, first wavers, whatever. She said, the crown had to come off. Like she said, I could see it in the community because we were talking about the polarization in the community due to the political stuff and all the COVID and all that. And she's like, yeah, but, we reached a period where I watched the crowns have to come off. We got to get real. And there's a part of us that, regardless, like to your point, what somebody might be perceived as, that we all are, and the core of it to me is that people use the word authenticity. It's kind of getting a little bit, contorted now, but it is that rawness. It's just like, here I am, buck naked to the soul. I mean, this is me, and my human aspect is front and center. And I think this is kind of what's happening to me. There's an equalization occurring where the playing field is being leveled. That, for instance, every belief system that you have, no matter how adamant or convicted you are, it's gone. It's all being gone, being taken away, at least in levels at a minimum,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting what we're saying about the crowns have to come off because, again, we were, when spirituality was appropriated in many different ways and commercialized and consumer minded, it started to become about this, oh, welcome, the light is, and it's like, my tradition is being a bruja, and so we've never been like that. Even if we're spiritual and whatever, we've never been like, oh, oh. I think I tried that when I was 20, and one of my friends was like, can you get rid of that fako spiritual voice before I slap you? And I was like, I know, my teacher did that, so I thought I had to do it. And she was like, it was really interesting. It was a long time ago. But no, I'm so myself, and in all my classes, I'm
Yeah.
very transparent. This is just the sacred work that I came to finish.
Yeah.
And I feel very, like, personally for me, I didn't actually want to do this work, right? Even though my family was already doing, they were mediums. They weren't doing it as work. They were already intuitive, psychic, and helping each other. Um, I kept running away, going to corporate, doing other things, but I kept seeing things, and I kept, being the messenger, and then getting laid off. And my friends and my circles were like, Vanessa, and I didn't really, want to be on video. I didn't want to be on all that. And then it was like, when I make it about me being on video, that's very ego-y.
Yeah.
It's not really about me being on video. It's about being a platform for spirit to jump off and, share whatever needs to be shared. And so I was able to release that it wasn't about me and just own, hey, here I am, where you and I are here having a conversation. Awesome people are joining us. And it can be filled with ease.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's also, there's a couple of questions. I'm going to pull them both together and just pose one. But, I remember going back again, I didn't really immerse myself until late 2013 online because I was homeless the previous 2 years. And I started to see a lot of, you got to sage, and I'm not knocking any of this. I'm
Right.
going somewhere, but you got to sage, you got to protect yourself, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then I saw it start to fade away. But now there's been a kind of a resurgence in, well, like you would know this because a lot of the practitioners that come on say, man, it's a lot of people waking up, and obviously it's happening. So this question and the one from Anna earlier, Anna's was specific to drinking or alcohol. You could replace that with anything. In other words, her question was along the lines of, how do you repair or realign what's been, quote unquote, damaged from your past behavior? But energetically, to me, what JR is saying here, and thank you both for your comments, they're the same to me. How do you keep away from spiritual attacks once you raise your vibrational energy? And I've kind of seen this kind of subtle thing happen. I guess it's part of our transformation where the realization and awareness and reality that the answer is when you raise the frequency, you're wiping the slate, basically. You know what I mean? It's like you're changing, that people talk about. I know in my early days I would often say, I have these moments where the past, present, and future all merge. And later on, it took more meaning. And what I mean by this today is you're actually rewriting the past. When you raise that frequency, you're altering timelines and dimensions, and certainly in your own field. But I don't know if you have another take on that. I
I
mean,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would love to share. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely true when we raise our energy, etc. But that's also a blanket statement that if somebody's stumbling around and not knowing exactly, what steps they can take, I also so raising our energy will absolutely protect us, etc. But there's also another component of it, right? For
mm,
some people, raising their energy and then never experiencing that again may be very on point. For someone else, there may be lessons. For
yeah,
example, I've been raising my energy since I'm very young. I've never drank. I never did drugs. Maybe I've like one drunk, two drinks a year, like
mm,
one, right? It's not, I've never done any of that. Um, Yet someone stole my work from my group. I had 80 students in a course. They took my link. There were 3,500 downloads. That's a psychic attack.
yeah,
There were 3,500 downloads, right? My brother had just passed, so I sat there and I was like, what am I supposed to learn from this? Immediately, he's like, Vanessa, you're growing, you're up leveling. You need to learn how to protect your work. So if you're going to share it very specifically in a place, it's not going to be able. So boom, 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 I learned the technology. Now I didn't. So to me, it's not as simple as just raise your energy, everything will be all right.
mm,
There's also lessons involved for some folks. It may not be everyone, right? So remember that if you feel like there's a psychic attack, ask yourself, drop in for a moment, ground, feel your feet on the ground, your booty in the seat, take a deep breath. We're given this beautiful gift. And take a breath in and just call in your spirit, call in your
yeah,
higher self, call in your guides, call in your well ancestors, and ask, what is the gift in this psychic attack?
yeah,
And is there anything that I need to learn from this? And is there anything that I need to know right now? Because as you know, Todd, that you were sharing, it is an evolution as we keep growing. Most of us don't go from, hey, I woke up to now I'm going to raise my total energy.
yeah.
Maybe there's some folks that do it,
No, I agree.
right? And so, yes, once we do that, I can share with you too, like, um, I work with about 7 people a day and about 150 people in private courses a month. I have thousands of followers over in Instagram, people writing me in 2 or 3 places all the time, right? So there's a lot of numbers. I still cleanse every night, even if I would
Mm,
say I'm high vibe, I'm
mm,
flowing, I'm bouncing, I got energy no matter what. I am buoyant in spirit. I'm also in a body, right?
mhm,
That's taken sad, losses. So I get in my bath. So I would say allow yourself to do something where you ground and breathe and ask, well, is this serving me in any way? Because it may serve you. Maybe not Todd, maybe not me, maybe not someone else,
that's
but
right.
you specifically. And then um, and then I would say, ask yourself if there's anything that you're inviting in. And I will talk about this specifically. I've been stalked in the past when I was younger, right? And I was doing all this protection stuff. And still, I was being stalked by different people. And I had to sit down. I was like 23. And I was like, what's going on with Vanessa? Your father put you down, my guide said to me. And so, in a way, in a strange, weird way, the being stalked by men,
Yeah,
there's a weird twisted thing where you feel special. And I was like, what? Because my soul didn't think that. My higher self told me that. I was like, oh wow, I had to do the healing work to forgive my dad and let that go and be like, I do not need anybody following me, stalking me, to show myself that I love myself, to feel loved, to feel validated, to feel important. It stopped completely. And so there's that part where sometimes we need to go and ask that. For the drinking and the alcohol, know that yes, you can repair your DNA, you can. And it's again, yes, raising your vibration. But some people need AA, right? Not everyone.
mhm,
Some people need a support group. Some people need somewhere because I hear sometimes people getting slapped. Get over it. Just high vibe it. Get over
yeah,
it. Get into the, well, maybe that person needs to go through the process of therapy or working with a shaman. We don't know. We're all individuals. And so allow yourself to ask, what do I need right now? And maybe you're somebody who never got support physically, and being supported physically will shift you. And so know that the drinking and the alcohol, you can shift it, you can heal the damage, and that there's a lesson in there. There's a karmic thing in there
Hmm.
for you, right? And I can say that I went to a couple of lifetimes and I drank a couple of lifetimes. That's why I've been like this in this lifetime. I never
Hmm.
knew why I was like this. I was like, well, because I died from it in other lifetimes, right? And now I'm like, oh, right, V, what brought you to that before? And what do you need to heal and to release? Someone said, this is one of those 605 currently living divine seeds. Her spirit part is a fractal of Archangel Uriel, one of its 3 divine seats and 23 walk-ins, such as the Donald out of 36 max. Thank you. Thank you, Adam, for sharing that.
Adam is the Soulogy cosmic Akashic conduit.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
he's got some powerful stuff.
Thank you, my
Uh,
thank
it,
you.
what you were saying is true. Yeah, that there, it's actually okay. So I'm kind of framing this now. So the the deterrent
Yeah.
for expansion is actually the bridge to expansion. So it can be um, materialized in an AA course or in another modality or shaman sessions or whatever. But yeah, what I'm getting from you, and it's very true. It's really in the message of why is it happening. So I feel like you take for example, you were being stalked. For a lot of people, they could relate to why am I in the same type of relationship I was in at 15 and at 22 and you know what I mean. So
Yep.
the loop keeps coming back around until we look at it and say, you know, this is on me.
Yeah.
And
Great.
yeah,
And no victim blaming,
no,
it's not about that. This is a grand adventure, and remembering who we truly are.
yeah.
And some of the adventures we have are not fun, they're not pleasant. I wanted to share something. My mom was also very, very spiritual. She recognized me as a child. When I would tell her things, she never shut me down. We had our arguments and we had our clashes because I know we had past lives together, and we didn't always, sometimes we were on different sides of
Well,
belief systems.
and your last name ends in a vowel.
Yes,
We tend to be a little hot blooded.
of course. And then, and my mom, she said to me while she was fighting her death, she wanted to live. She wanted to live for us. She wanted to be around to see her grandchildren grow. And she said, why, Vanessa? Why? I'm powerful. I'm strong. I believe in spirit. I've done everything. I pray, I release, I let go. I'm supposed to heal myself. And I told her, I was like, Mom, your human side says that you must heal your body. You're healing your spirit. You're healing your emotions. You're healing your mind. The survival of the body does not mean that we've healed, right? And death does not mean that we haven't healed.
Right.
And I also said to her, part of the reason why you're leaving and you're preparing to leave is because you do not want to be around when your son leaves. You want to be on the other side. And it came out of me. And that's
Wow.
essentially what happened. And I know my mom and I always talk to each other like straight. And she's there sick, dying, and I'm sitting
So
there
you
saying
told her
this.
this? You
Yeah,
told her
yeah.
this?
And I
This
said,
wasn't,
and I
yeah.
didn't want to. I didn't want, I was like, but that's how I've always been. I've been like
Mm.
very blunt since I'm a little kid with her. And sometimes she wanted to like strangle me probably. But I said, Mom, it's because you do not want to be here when your youngest son leaves.
Yeah,
And
that'd be hard.
and she took a deep breath and she said to me, I'm strong. I can handle it. And I'm like, no, Mom, you want to be on the other side welcoming him. And so, she left in April and he left 5 months later. And both my parents were on the other side waiting for him. And so it made sense to me. It made sense to me. I could bash my head against the wall and be like, why? She was so spiritual. Why? Why didn't she surpass this
Yeah,
and elevate her energy? Well, maybe elevating her energy was leaving the body, right? Like the soul.
exactly. Exactly. It's like you said about your husband or people that make comments about people that they see, like, from their perspective, like someone like your husband.
Yeah.
That you don't, I still say it. I said this to you before, I think we're all beating at the same vibration, it just doesn't look that way. So what looks like, one thing is actually the same thing you're doing, or I mean, it's just we can't comprehend it, and you're right. I had a cousin, and his mom passed right before, well, a few months before he passed. And he was my age. I grew up with him.
Mm.
And his partner told me, we had a little, get together. And he says, you know, he said, he came to me in my dream and he was bawling. He said, he said, look, man, just chill out. My mom's here with me.
Mm.
I'm here. And we, to, and same kind of thing, wasn't the exact words, but we've elevated, or we know our next step was to be on the other side to assist with what's happening on the earth, from our family unit outward. So, yeah, we can't tell, and that's another thing about New York City that I learned real quick. I also learned about what I was kind of going through. A part of what I was going through was, why am I always broke? Well, you're a hobo. You carry around your suitcase and your computer and your microphone, and that's all fine and dandy. But you don't have two pennies to rub together. And one of the things I learned, because obviously in the Bronx and otherwise, there's a lot of homeless people.
Yeah.
And I remember I would go into this Dunkin' Donuts because it was like $2 for two breakfast tacos,
Right.
and I might have had $10. And one day I was starting to get the message of, you need to look at these people. You've been homeless. You need to look at these people. Remember all the angels that you found on the streets, even if they were a crackhead, you know, or a meth head or whatever their story was. And I remember coming out of the Dunkin' Donuts having this transmission reinforced for like the umpteenth time. And there was a guy, and he was sitting there homeless with a sign. And I forget, his name was Matthew.
Mm.
And I had two tacos and a coffee. And it just, like you said about blurting it out to your mom, it just came out. And I said, here, here's all my money. It was like $7. Here's the coffee. And and I left there, and the reciprocation from the universe came. Like, I don't remember what it was, like $100, which was like 1,000 to me at the time. And I thought, oh, wow. And so I kept doing it mostly with him, but just seeing people in any station of life from your perception and being able to see the divine in them, because I think that's one of the big challenges we've had is in seeing ourselves from separate is, I either have you on a pedestal or I think you're beneath me,
Yeah.
and both of them lead us to the same place of division and separation. So yeah, I think that's something, I think too, that's got to be coming to the surface this year, because grudges, um, just imbalanced, separations from family or friends, and you see a lot of that. I cut these people off, and but if there's a
Cancel
charge,
culture. Yeah.
yeah,
Cancel culture.
yeah, if there's a
Cancel.
charge to it,
Yeah.
it's not like you said about the relationships and about the other things that'll keep popping up, right? Like the people
Mhm.
stalking you. It's not going to go away, and I think we're really going to be forced to walk our talk this year. And I know on a personal level, I'm revisiting this daily, and I have been for quite a while. But and that is to pull people up that I'm not congruent with,
Yes.
you know, and just work in the ethers and get as far as I can that day, then come back the next day until it's equalized. I
Absolutely.
think we're going to be if we're going to materialize earth, heaven on earth, then grudges, imbalances, stories behind them that validate our stance. I mean, all that stuff I think is going to go away. We're going to be pushed to limits, beyond limits, um, that we have. It's
Yes.
inevitable.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where the pandemic energy has invited folks to
Mm.
see what's important to them, and that, working all the time to make money to buy more things isn't really truly living. And what is really important? Connection. What is really important? Friends, family, love, time spent together. Maybe people have a particular hobby, maybe pets, maybe plants, whatever it is, singing, dancing, art, the things that people have been doing online more and more, showing us videos of. Um, we've had to have our everyday life peeled away. For me, because I was already online 9 years, that didn't shift like my business. Um, I lowered my rates because I wanted to make sure that I would be able to support folks who had lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And so I worked way more because of it. But what it did take away from me was my improv on the weekend that I was performing a lot. But it also brought me into more service, more service, more service. Like it was a lot very intense. Now I'm pulling back a little bit, but I witnessed so many people crashing, like who, like you said, waking up, like just everywhere, people waking up. And I've witnessed a lot of people doing healing work.
Yeah.
Where I am a lot on Instagram, the messages and the Insta stories and the things, folks sharing about the classes that they've taken during this time that were made affordable, that were made available for them. And so I think that this time where we've had to stay inside, a lot of people have received messages, have been guided.
Absolutely.
And we need to see, I mean, that's the thing, we need to see each other as the same in terms of beings of light.
Hmm.
And what we want for ourselves, we should want for our neighbor and for our brother
Yeah.
and our sister. So
Yeah, and I think for me, this energy, whatever aspect you're talking about, it you have to engage it. It's not just gonna. Oh, if I look at the biggest antagonist in my life, I've spent years back to my early 20s work, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I was working in the ethers with this person, and I still go back and check, and sometimes I have discovered something within myself that I still haven't let go of. But the whole point is, it's not going to. The universe doesn't hand you anything on a platter. It's an equal energy exchange, and so it does take initiative. And what you're describing is kind of a byproduct of one of the several byproducts from this virus or quarantine, which is kids are at home, which means they're more connected to their parents and vice versa. They're out of this institutionalization. They're into the real education, which is playing in the backyard or creative abilities and all those things that go with it, which is what you were talking about. But it's it's directly related to how much we engage it. It really
absolutely.
is.
Well, the flow is there. Are we going to dip our toe? Are we going to jump all the way in? It's 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 uh it's just the way it is. Oh, Patricia said improv. Yeah,
I was
and
about to
let's,
bring that. I was about to bring that up, but I thought
yeah.
I talked too long, and I didn't want to bring up a second subject. But I was
uh,
going to ask you, well, because what I was going to segue in with was another aspect I think that's real that you referred to actually when you said you're starting to see people, express themselves on video and do other things. It's spontaneity. Like there's this field of potential that we're all finding ourselves in that's expanding through our own individual expansion. One of the attributes of it is apparently is spontaneity. So I was going to ask you what kind of improv do you do? Can you give us an idea?
So traditionally, I always loved like drama. When
Yeah.
I used to perform in my early 20s, I love drama. And you think about, Spanish culture and the drama of the story and all this. But when I moved out to central Pennsylvania, I was sitting here going, I'm going to go crazy. I'm working inside the house. I don't know anyone. I'm a social being. I'm used to being in a building where I talk to people. I go downstairs, I see the baker, I see this one, that one. And so I Googled and I found a great place called Harrisburg Improv Theater. And I went down there to take a class and wound up meeting great friends. I wound up realizing I was judged it in a way. I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm not funny like that. The thing about improv is that you're not doing it alone. It's not a comedy hour show.
Hmm.
You are responding to the other person, and people have their, like, there's a thing in improv where you have each other's back, right? So when we're behind the stage before we jump on stage to perform, we literally are tapping, got your back, got your back, got your back. The whole team's doing that. No one is supposed to take over and overly shine and like, speak for an hour, half an hour. And so what we do is we go out there and we do long form improv where we ask the audience, like, hey, everybody, this is our name, and let's give us a word or a place or an idea to start with. People could say burger, they could say the capital, they could say Williamsburg, they could say Georgia, whatever it is. And we just start doing scenes off of it. And then we do group scenes, and it just these stories.
That's cool.
It is
So, like,
so much fun.
if somebody said the scene is uh, a holiday gathering and you're in a large Spanish kitchen.
Well, right, but they make it, it's even, unless we give them the location or this, they could say holiday gathering, and suddenly, somebody starts going ho ho ho, and the other girl comes and hits him. You know, Mr. Claus, I'm not going to work for you anymore. This
Oh
is
wow.
just bullshit. You know what I mean? And so it could be like that, and I loved it so much because all week, I'm holding space for people.
Yeah.
Now I get to be on stage and just play without the pain part, right? Because when I
Yeah.
hold space, it's beautiful, but a lot of people are coming with pain. Oh, singing. So when I got there, I decided to join musical improv. And so musical improv is we train, but we come out, we're a group, and we say, hey, everybody, we're about to do a show. Can you give us the title of a musical? And they'll be like, they'll say something like The Green Monkey, which, what is that, right? Or The
Yeah.
Green Monkey Falls. And so suddenly we start going into places, we start doing activities, and we start creating a scene, and we start singing because somebody starts playing, the musician, and
Wow.
somebody comes up with a chorus, we repeat it, and we stand up in front of the stage, and essentially we become characters. And we don't check in with each other to see who's going to be what. We just go up and we'll be like, hello, my name is Vincena. I used to love the Macarena. And he goes, oh, right? He goes, and now I only dress in the fur of cats, which is crazy because I love cats. And I once came out and I was a villain who named all my cats after my ex-boyfriends after they mysteriously disappeared. And so you can see how I get to play things that
That's
normally,
nice. And
right, in
see,
life I would
yeah,
never wish upon anyone.
that that so the what we kind of led up to that was when I was talking. We were talking about New York City, and I was talking about Matthew, the homeless guy, and I was trying to capture this thing. And Pat Armistead, thank you, just connected it. Okay, so anyway, they said they were improv trained, and the first thought was correct. All players are equal. But last part was what I was trying to explain. You need to be ready to give and open to receive. That's what I was getting at that point in my journey. There was a connection between giving and receiving, right? And it was beyond like the human, right? What you would think at first blush.
Yeah.
It was like coming out of that Dunkin' Donuts. It was spontaneous. It just hits you, right? You
Yeah.
just do it, and
Yeah,
that's
and
what
I love what
uh,
Samantha's saying. Shadow play, absolutely.
mm,
Like I love playing, the little hero and everything and all that.
yeah,
But I don't mind doing the little like evil person dance with like a coworker. And we do a little dance and we're dancing around the stage doing whatever. And it brings us back to our inner child, right? In childhood.
yeah,
At
yeah,
some point in
yeah,
time, we were
yeah.
allowed to sing and play and do whatever until somebody goes like, "Don't do that. You can't sing." Or girls like you or boys like you, somebody, school, ourselves,
It's
or no,
imagination. It's the
right,
cultivation and nourishing of the imagination. I mean,
right. And so
and we can all go back to that. Yeah.
exactly, and society says, I mean, like a scene like, let's say somebody walks in and pretends it's an office and goes, "Oh my God," in the copier. He's like, "I'm in the copy room. There's always weird things happening around here." So he set the stage. Weird things are going to happen. So I walk in, look around in the copy room, pull down my pants and pretend to pee in the corner, pull it up and walk out. And he's like, "Oh my God, what else could happen?" And then I crawl in, I bark, go into the same corner, lift a leg, and then bark, walk out, right?
I'm gonna have to find one of those here in Arkansas.
You have to, because just you are
I've
anything.
seen some in Chicago. I think I saw one in New York. I saw one in Utah. Morgan and I went to one in Utah when we were there, 2017.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's that. Oh, that show too. There's that show. I don't think they showed it anymore, but it was on. I think it was on Comedy Central. What's my line? They had the four guys.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
You
love
know
that. Whose line is
that's
it? Whose line is it anyway?
yeah.
I
Whose
went to
line is it
see
anyway?
them. I went to see them. But like I was saying, I reached adulthood. I didn't think this was a thing
Mm.
for me. But then I'm like, well, this is the only thing around here. What am I going to do? And I wound up meeting really open-minded spiritual folks, creative folks, and allowing ourselves to be fully human. In everyday life, sometimes we may put on a veneer, a facade of somebody that
Yeah.
we think we should be. Well, in improv, you really can't, because not everything that you do or say is going to be funny, nor should it be. Sometimes your face is a set off for somebody else to come in and say something funny.
Mhm.
And you're not supposed to try to be funny. It just winds up being funny. And so I think it's a freedom to be ourselves, a freedom to
Yeah.
play, wonder, pleasure, awe, teamwork, you know?
I think that the imagination thing, because like you think as a little kid, there's always that point. I remember like the I remember like getting some plastic cowboy and Indian, figures from the five and dime and going to my grandmother's and playing cowboys. And I was probably like 6 or 7. I'd done it since I was like little
Mm,
and just being immersed in that. And then somebody came in and burst my bubble. It was an aunt or or somebody. You can't do that. You're too old to do that.
right.
And I, for some reason, that stuck with me and affected me,
Yes.
until I
Yes.
was able to go back. But I look at it the same way now. Like, I did it last night and I do it probably 3 or 4 nights a week now. I used to do it every night, you know, and I'll come in here, I'll find some, like last night, a friend of mine sent me an album that he did with some beats, some ambient music, very original. And I turned it on to listen to it, and I thought, oh wow. And I turned on the word processor and I just started writing
Awesome.
poem. I started speaking into the microphone, the words. I'm like, oh wow, this is going somewhere. You don't know where it's going to go, but there's something about the imagination being, unleashed or unrestricted.
Yes.
That that is the same type of thing we were talking about on the previous show, which is like sacred sexual energy. It's creative life force.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I found moving to central Pennsylvania. I was like, so interesting. I lived in New York, but I never did it there. And then I came and did it for 2.5 years, and then COVID came. Uh, and um, and I miss it, And
Yeah,
it's some people are doing Zoom improv,
yeah.
but I'm all zoomed out after being on Zoom all day and sometimes nights.
Zoomed
But
out.
totally, but
That's
it's
a new
so
term.
beautiful. And I
Yeah.
invite people, and the interesting thing too is like a leadership institute that I work for. I told them, hey, I'm doing improv. They're like, come and do it with the girls, and I'm like, I'm new. Why don't you get somebody from New York who's an
Mm,
expert? I said to them, they're like, no, Vanessa, we want you to do it. I can
yeah.
tell you, I walked in there about 70 girls. This was before COVID, and I had to have interns help me because there were too many people to do the exercises. By the time I left, almost 2 hours later, people did not want to stop playing
Yeah.
the games because, you know,
Yeah. It's that magic. It's that magic. Hey, so Ariana, our beloved sister, she asked a question, and then also I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that, um, first of all, if there's anything you want to do, you're welcome to do it. But also, let's restate where people can find you. But before that, she's asking the question if you know of any improv groups, obviously on Zoom, where people can connect with people to do
okay.
that. Yeah.
So, the
Hmm.
Lancaster Improv Players, and actually go back after we finish this, and I'll
Hmm.
maybe put in links for you. That's what I'll
Hmm.
do. Lancaster Improv Players. There's Baltimore Improv that I know of. Then there's actual teams. Fuck that shit. Okay, sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but I did.
Yeah, you can.
F that shit is a great, great. I love them. I took a class with one of the teachers. They've been around for years. They do incredible things. F that shit is great. So that's an actual team. F that shit.
Hmm.
And then there's another one called Something Sports, and that one is I don't know if it's a black improv group. They're new. They've been around a couple of years. They're like a young group of kids, but I have to look it up. And then there's
Yeah.
so much. There's so much happening. I mean,
I
some
would
of the theaters
imagine
are
if
closed
you,
down.
yeah, I would
It's
imagine uh, Google it or DuckDuckGo or whatever. Yeah, I would imagine you could
Oh, I
find.
don't know FB groups, but I know like, and there's a class starting on a Monday. I think it's like $75 or
Hmm.
something for Zoom improv that a friend of mine is teaching. But I'll
Well,
post information.
that'd be
But
cool.
um, but it's so much fun, and so what wound up happening is I wound up teaching it, and I wound up inviting people to play. These young women who were there for
We might have
years.
to do one for Soulogy.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
you
I
could
have to get some
moderate it.
techniques. I have to get some techniques to do it on Zoom because it's like
Yeah,
different when we're not in the room,
yeah.
but absolutely. And yeah, anybody wants to reach out, I do Akashic record readings. I do ancestral hypnosis healing. And I also help people build their businesses online and have a school, the School of the Healing Arts. I think
Mm,
it's new since we spoke, School of the Healing Artes. And it holds Reiki trainings, Akashic Record, intuitive journeys. And you can find me at the Biz, BRUJA, Bruja, BRUJA.com. And follow me on Facebook. I'm more on Instagram, the Biz Bruja. And if you're interested in doing a pay what you can Reiki class, February 6th, there's one coming up. Just find me on Instagram. And I'm not turning anyone away. So even if the lowest amount is too high, let me know. It's with a J, actually.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah, with a
erase that.
J. No worries. We'll put in a
Uh,
new one.
I should
Bruja.
know that,
No
given
worries.
my ethnicity.
Yeah, no worries. Bruja with a J. Bruja with a J.
There we
And
go.
one of the things
There
yeah,
we
and I'm
go.
so glad to be here. And Todd, you're amazing. You and Morgan are beautiful, incredible people. The people that you have here who are joining us and that you interview are so wonderful. Just keep doing this amazing work. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the folks that showed up. And just be patient with yourselves. Please be patient with yourselves. You know, I know that the messages that I've gotten for this year were for more pleasure, were, yeah, serve Vanessa, do the sacred work. All of us need a little more being in the moment
Mm,
and enjoying the lives that we have because we don't know how long we're here as who we are. Right?
hmm.
Then we
That's
start
right.
again as little bebitos, like little babies,
Mm,
and we gotta, go through the whole first grade, second grade again. So let's enjoy being in these bodies. Let's
yeah.
enjoy being in this mind and this heart, and having a lot of laughs and a lot of joy and a lot of shares. So that's messages coming through me. And thank you, Todd, so much for having me.
Right on. I love you. All blessings to
Do
you
love
and
you.
yours. And I look forward to collaborating again in 2021.
Thank you. And thank you, Adam, for the information. Sending you so much love.